Advanced canola trait technology is here. And it's soon to be the talk of the town. Optimum Glide delivers excellent yield potential and agronomic trait performance. Improved crop safety. Enhanced weed control. And a wider window of application. You're going to want to see this. Learn more at OptimumGlide.ca.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Thursday edition of the show. Hey, thanks so much for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a part of your workday. And a big shout out to everybody also listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast, Canada, the U.S., or beyond. It is great to have you with us here today. Today's show, like every Thursday, is brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. For 90 years, Pioneer has developed and tested products to meet your local challenges with the new Optimum Glide canola, Enlist E3 soybeans, to performing corn products and industry-leading traits and technologies, to maximizing your yield potential. Pioneer's on-the-ground team can help you get the right products for your fields. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more. And speaking of Pioneer Seeds Canada, we are going to be talking here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire with Chris Olbach. He is out there in Ontario. He's in Springfield. He'll be joining us here today on the program. We're also going to hear from Mike Beckie, who is in Saskatchewan. We got Simon Ellis in Manitoba and Brendan Byrne as well in Ontario. And we've also got a special treat. We're going to be talking to Blake Rasmussen, who's in Plentywood, Montana, kind of up there in the northeast corner below Regina in Montana. So he is, I was actually at his farm here this week and was able to catch up with him, and we recorded we're standing in his lentil field. So there is that, and kind of a cool different show. You know, I've recorded the show in a lot of different places, odd places, Starbucks in New Orleans, Chicago United Lounge many times, my pickup truck, too many times to count. Today, I'm in Scobie, Montana. Look it up on the map, Scobie, Montana. And I stopped in at Pro Co-op Ag Center, one of their locations. I think they got 6 locations here. They're across the line here, right just below the Canadian-U.S. border. And it's great. They allowed me to use their boardroom. So I'm sitting here in the boardroom, and pretty cool. This is added to the list of just impromptu stuff. The staff walks down the hallway and kind of wonder what's going on here. But we are broadcasting here today from the Pro Co-op Ag Center in Scobie, Montana. If you have any feedback on today's show for the Farmer Rapid Fire, let us know how you're making out in your fields or your barns, what's happening. Maybe there's something that one of the farmers says that kind of you sort of wonder, you want to provide your perspective, or maybe you're supportive, maybe you're in disagreement. We'd love to hear from you. Provide us with your perspective. It's a two-way conversation here at RealAg Radio. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find us across all the different social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, as well as TikTok. Or you can call that RealAg feedback line. The number is 855-776-6147. Well, if you're a listener to this show for a long time, you know that I kind of make it back and forth between Canada and the U.S. quite a bit. I think there is more. There's a lot of common ground. I think a lot of times people focus on some of the differences, and there are some. There is no doubt about it. But there's also a lot of common areas as well. And as I mentioned on yesterday's show, we're doing a project with North Dakota State University, NDSU, looking at root rot and aphanomyces. And we were out in a field today of some lentils in Plentywood, and the farmer Blake Rasmussen, who's going to be on the show here in a little bit, we're in his field. And boy, I'll tell you, so this is an area where lentils have really taken off. Highly profitable crop. It is the profitable crop in the area. And no different than what has been experienced in Saskatchewan. Aphanomyces is really wrecking some havoc. And if you look at my Twitter profile, you'll see I posted some pictures of some of the root rot issues and the stand just crushing. And trying to put together some educational material on really talking about the need to expand rotations. And, I can't remember which grower it was that was on the Farmer Rapid Fire 2, 3, 4 weeks back, talking about how they've actually gone to a 9-year rotation on their lentils. I think Blake said he was 5. So this is something that's really impacting a lot of acres. And when it comes to lentils, for sure, and it impacts field piece too, but when it comes to lentils, this is something we really got to figure out. We have to find some solutions. The pulse acre is really, really under threat because of aphanomyces. And we haven't found a way to breed ourselves out of it. We haven't found a practice that gets us out of it. We're using crop rotations to kind of stretch it out a little bit. But this is a real thing. And, it was said in the field today, which I thought was really interesting. If this was a problem in corn, we would have sorted it out by now. and I think, the reason for that is one is money. And, we were with an agronomist, Jeannie, who is with Pro Co-op Ag Center and at a Plentywood. And she said, what if you told a corn grower that, hey, you can only grow corn every 6 years, right? What if you dropped into Iowa and you said, there's this disease, you don't even know if you have it yet, but it's coming, and you need to be proactive today, and you can only grow corn once every 6 years. What would you do, right? You probably look at the person with a real tilted, strange look on your face. And that's sort of been the issue when it comes to battling aphanomyces in some of the pulse crops. It's sort of it's going to be a dry year, or it's not here yet. That's a Canadian problem, and now we're starting to really see it in some of these parts, and it's having the same dramatic impact. And you get the wrong amount of moisture at the wrong time, or maybe the right amount of moisture at the wrong time, and the effects are really, really seen. So it's one of those diseases, no different than like club root or blackleg in canola, Fusarium graminearium in wheat. We're trying to make sure we figure out a way to stay ahead of it. And in aphanomyces, it just doesn't seem like we've really reached that point yet where we really know how to do that. So we need collaboration between Canadian researchers, Northern Plains researchers to sort this out. So very, very common issues across that Canadian-U.S. border for sure. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to get started with Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
This year might bankrupt us. If I lose the farm, I'm letting down generations of my family. Why am I the only one who can't handle it? Maybe the farm would be better off without me. Hello?
Hey, I was just thinking about you and thought I'd say hi. I know it's been a hard season, and I wanted to see how you're holding up.
We might feel alone, but we're all in this together. Visit domore.ag for mental health supports tailored for the agriculture community.
How's your seed quality? What should you treat with? What about herbicide carryover and environmental concerns? Spring is here, and you've got a lot of things to think about in regards to your pulse crop. The Pulse School on Real Agriculture has information and advice for all these questions and more to help you navigate this season. Brought to you by BASF. Pulse School episodes are available at pulseschool.com, realagriculture.com, or as a podcast on your favorite streaming service. Download the latest episode today.
Infuse some energy into your next corporate event, customer meeting, or conference with RealAg Radio, Canada's national agriculture radio show. Create a unique experience at your next event with host Shaun Haney, broadcasting RealAg Radio live on SiriusXM, featuring exciting guests, captivating interviews, and the latest news from the agriculture community. Contact advertising at realagriculture.com or call 587-787-1795 to book your on location with RealAg Radio today.
And welcome back to Real Ag Radio for the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Make sure you go to pioneer.com/Canada to find out more. We're joined right now by Brennan Byrne. He's down in Essex, Ontario. Hey, Brennan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Shaun?
Hey, I'm doing really good. So how are those crops looking?
We finally got a bit of rain down in this area in the last couple of days, so everything is kind of jumping a little bit back to life. It was pretty dry for about 3 or 4 weeks here, and things were looking a little tough, but I think they're on their way now.
So is it kind of been like a week-by-week thing, sort of we need some rain this week, hey, we got it, we'll live to fight another day, try to stay on that optimum yield curve? And if so, do you feel that you're still on that optimum yield curve?
Well, everything here was very slow to progress, so beans and corn were planted fairly early, but we only had about a half an inch of rain in the stretch when we were planting, and then not much of anything after. So it's kind of a stagnant little run there. We got a shower that got things up and out of the ground, and I think like this last one, we got almost 2 inches of rain here, but it's soaking up pretty quickly. So I think we're still in good shape just because there wasn't a lot of activity, but the beans and corn really seem to be going now.
Okay. How have you made out with things like disease? Is any of that on your radar yet?
No, there really hasn't seemed to be much of that on our radar at all at this point. I think just because everything was so dry, there really wasn't really a lot of pest issues so far.
Yeah. It's like one of those things where you want to see a little bit because then you got some yield there, right?
Sure, I can see that point of view, but I think for the most part, a pest-free growing season is not too bad a thing.
Okay, so what else is happening this week on the farm? What's going on?
We're probably 10 days to 2 weeks away from wheat harvest, so there's been a bit of just kind of getting some things together for that. Otherwise, Grain Farmers of Ontario, we have a summer meeting next week, so there's some of that preparation as well. And then Sun's got some baseball, as you'd be aware of, that's going on. So it's a nice time where you've got kind of a gap where it's a little too wet to do much of anything in the field in terms of spraying or anything, and the wheat is not quite ready, so you can kind of fill it in with some activities.
Okay, well, we can take a bit of a sidetrack here. How old is your son, and what's he doing with baseball?
He's 17, and he's on a travel baseball team down this way, so they've got 3 games coming up here, and he's had a pretty good stretch so far. They were able to get some stuff in early and kind of get going, so it's been good. When
the kids are like under 10, it's painful, right? Like it is painful, and you love the sport, but it's like, oh my goodness. When they get to this age, because my youngest is about that same age, and I'll tell you, it is so much fun to be at the park and watch them play. Like, it's no other place I'd rather be. It's awesome.
I'm in the same boat. It's that you kind of remember being a kid that age and where it starts to feel like real baseball and everything's happening pretty quick and it's wood bats and it just has that feeling of, you know what, this is summer around our house.
Yeah. Especially as we get into July here, and especially for you guys in Central Canada, the humidity really, really picks up. So there is that as well. How are you making on the crop marketing?
Well, we've got some crop booked for fall delivery, and that it's been a bit of an up and down these last few weeks, especially with soybean market. So we're keeping an eye on it, but you kind of put a plan in place and then sometimes react a little quicker or a little slower than you maybe wanted to, but I think we're okay that way.
Yeah, this potential weather market in the Corn Belt really has things bouncing around a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, even like in our region, like you can see how weather really is a factor in different things. Like we've had a lot of the smoke kind of from the Canadian wildfires that is coming through, and especially these last 2-3 days down here where it looks, if you looked outside, you'd think that it was raining off in the distance, but it's just the smoky feel to it. So it's kind of blocking out the sun a little bit. So things are not drying quite as quick after the 2 inches of rain. But you see how weather is affecting everybody, and I guess that's part of farming that we slowly but surely kind of adjust to and get used to and realize it's out of our hands.
Do you expect that smoke's going to delay maturity here on some of these crops? Because that's what we found when we had some of the August fires going back a couple of years ago, especially on canola. We really saw that mature. The plant basically like pauses. It sort of takes a siesta, an intermission, so to speak, halftime maybe, and it delayed maturity. What have people in the agronomy field been telling you about the impact the smoke will have on the corn and the beans?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because it feels that way for the wheat, as well as some of the winter canola that's down my way. It seemed like we were on pace for kind of a late June harvest because it got really hot at the end of May. And then it seems like with the different wildfire smoke, it's just really cooled down our temperature these last few weeks. And everything that looked like it was going to be ready to go, like you still look in the wheat fields, there's a lot more green than I'd have thought would be there as we come up at the end of June. And I was looking at a canola field that's beside my place and had similar where very green stems and that. And I know they were hoping to have harvested it probably by now, originally when they looked at it about a month and a half ago.
What are you expecting on that wheat yield? Are you pretty optimistic, or what are your thoughts?
I remain optimistic until the combine hits the field, but I think that it's been really, really dry here. The crop held in pretty good. I think that if I had to guess offhand, I'd say we're probably going to be average to a little bit below average, but I am one of those guys that remains optimistic and hopes that I'm wrong when I'm thinking that it potentially isn't going to be quite what we hoped.
Good stuff. Hey, you mentioned the GFO's having a summer meeting. Might as well get a promo in. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we every year we go to one of the board of directors districts and just have a kind of a tour, get to see their backyard, get to hang out with them for a couple of days. They take us on a little tour of what's in their area, as well as kind of a summer barbecue type of thing. So that's next week in Scott Purcell's district, which is kind of that Norfolk type area here in Ontario. So we'll be headed up there and do a board meeting there, and then a little tour and kind of celebrate that district this year.
Great stuff. Also, Scott Purcell, a veteran of the Farmer Rapid Fire. So there you go. Hey, Brennan, thanks so much for joining us here today. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime.
We'll be back with more of the Farmer Rapid Fire here on RealAg Radio, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
Advanced canola trait technology is here. And it's soon to be the talk of the town. Optimum Glide delivers excellent yield potential and agronomic trait performance. Improved crop safety. Enhanced weed control. And a wider window of application. You're going to want to see this. Learn more at OptimumGlide.ca.
As you head out into the field this season, the Corn School's got you covered. Everything from tillage discussions, weed control info, field trial results, yield strategies, and more. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com has the information and advice you need to help you succeed. Brought to you by Pride Seeds and BASF. Corn School episodes are available at cornschool.com, from RealAgriculture.com, or as a podcast from your favorite streaming service. Download the latest episode today.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, host of the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com. Throughout the year on the Soybean School, we'll bring you timely agronomic video content from planting to harvest, from the latest agronomic research to the latest in production technology. Check out our massive video library on YouTube, RealAgriculture.com, or download the audio podcast versions wherever you get your podcasts. The Soybean School is brought to you by Pride Seeds, BASF, and Syngenta Canada.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, to Wawanesa, Manitoba. And we are talking to Simon Ellis. Simon, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. Trying to
find shade and stay cool.
Yeah, a little warm in your parts?
Yeah, the temperature isn't bad, but it's high humidity and the sun's got a lot of energy. So I was changing a conveyor belt this morning, the belt out of it, and just sweating buckets and needed to change of clothes by the time I was done.
Okay, so I was actually out in the field earlier today, and we were talking about whether or not it was appropriate to wear shorts out crop scouting. What are your thoughts on this? Because my opinion is, not to bias you, but my opinion is absolutely it is. It is totally cool to wear shorts because denim is way too hot. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I do wear pants on hot days, but usually that's, if I was in a barley crop or oats, probably wearing pants. But if I'm just running around, even in the spring when we're loading customers with seed, it was hot. I was wearing shorts, and certainly some of the maybe more experienced farmers made comments. But you know what? Anything to stay cool and keep yourself moving. And once they see you running across the yard, they forget about the shorts pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I was in a lentil field, so not that tall.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and not that itchy. No aunts to bother the legs.
Fair enough. Okay, so how are those crops looking out there in Wawanesa?
We've had some good rains over the past couple weeks here that have really saved us. We were about 1 week away from crops severely taking a bad turn, but we got lucky and picked up 2 inches in less than an hour, and that really saved our bacon. So we're looking good right now, and another couple timely rains, and then things should be, optimistic harvest, I guess.
It really seems, to be fair, like so much of the geography we talk, like so many people are just week to week. It feels like. I don't know if that's just a state of mind but it just feels like everybody's like 14 days away from having real moisture issues.
Yeah, and storms seem to be very localized this year. There hasn't been, we always talked about those general 3-day rains, and I don't remember the last time we've had one of those. Yeah. And everything's strong. So I mean, we're good, but our neighbors, 3 miles to the east of us, their wheat was headed out and really struggling just because of how dry they were. And I think they've got some rain now, but the damage I think has been done for the most part. So There's between geography and then just the isolation of each individual rainstorm, and you get a mixed bag of everything across the farm these days.
So how are the crops looking?
Good. The wheat has started to head out, so we've got a couple fields sprayed for fungicide now. So we're actually about halfway through the farm with our fungicide treatments now, and we are battling grasshoppers. We've sprayed quite a few fields or headlands and stuff along fence lines and whatnot. So they're choosing to be stubborn this year, I guess. But you know what? Everything looks good. We just got to take care of it now, I guess.
Is fungicide being applied across the farm, or are you selective about it?
This year we're going to go across the farm. The crops now are staying wet all day long. So I think it's pretty important. Plus, we are seed growers, so I think in the production of seed, we don't want to risk a fusarium infection or any other kind of infection that might happen and degrade the seed quality.
Yeah. How are things going in the seed business? Did you have a good season this year?
Yeah, it was good. We struggled a little bit with some of our crops. Our flax didn't germinate as well as we had hoped. It looked great, but the nature of flax, I suppose. So that one, we ended up having to bring some in. But, I think everybody was pretty optimistic. It was a nice seeding spring. We got a good start around the 6th of May, I think. People started seeding and just kind of picked away as fields dried up. So I think people were happy and we were happy. It wasn't a big crush or anything like that. So it was a nice change from last year.
Yeah, that is good. Hey, what about your crop marketing? How are you making out there?
Well, I do have a couple things left to market, and I've got it targeted on about 10 bushels an acre of canola. I'm trying to get 16, but it hasn't hit yet. Maybe I'm being optimistic at this point. But we'll kind of see. Of course, being seed growers, we don't do a whole lot of marketing commercially, but we do our canola, and then maybe some extra oats seems to be something that we're going to have a lot of carryover, and we'll have to manage our inventory in that regard as well.
So have you been, that's on your 22 carryover. What about your 23 crop in the ground?
In the ground, nothing too much. We're waiting on some canola targets to hit, but other than that, I probably won't do too much until we just kind of see what the crop looks like. The storms around here, we've had so much hail lately, locally. Thankfully, not on our farm too much, a little bit, but that I'm a little nervous this year.
Okay, so
hopefully that doesn't happen, but yeah.
That's not a drought nervousness. That's you're worried about like wipeout from the white combine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as we speak, we're under tornado watch, and yesterday Brandon had I think 3 to 4 inches in about an hour or an hour and a half, and I mean it's just there's big storms around, and they seem to be violent, and you get the wrong one come across your farm, and it's not going to be a great situation.
Yeah, no doubt. It seems a lot of people we've talked to, there's been a real sort of holdback on marketings this year for a number of different reasons. And the last, I don't know, there probably is a VIX chart on some of these commodity futures, but we've really bounced around here as of late. And a lot of it stems on how much people are trading the funds are trading this weather market in the Midwest. So it's definitely been up and down, a bit of a roller coaster right now, and trying to pick your spot is kind of difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have to watch, we know what our costs have been now to get the crop in, so we do have to watch our break-even point, and as that dollar figure comes in, then we need to make sure that we get those contracted and secured in, because at the end of the day, that's the most important part. And so we're certainly watching it and trying to manage our risk as much as we possibly can while we're trying to be responsible and not over-contract, because I think I would imagine people still have that memory of when we did have poor crop, and there was either people were over contracted or it was very close to being over contracted, and there's probably still a little bit of nervousness around that.
Yeah, no doubt. Good points for sure. Okay, man. Well, hey, Simon, really appreciate you joining us. All the best to you throughout the growing season here, and we'll check in with you probably a little bit closer to harvest. Okay?
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Thanks for the phone call.
So Wawanesa sounding okay. It's one of those areas where moisture hasn't necessarily been abundant, it doesn't sound like, but there's still an opportunity to have a pretty decent crop in those parts. We've still got to stop in Davidson, Saskatchewan. Now, I happen to know it's a little bit more on the drier side. We're going to hear from Mike Beckie when we come back. You're listening to RealAg Radio. It's the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
Whether you're seeding, harvesting, or anything in between, the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com has you covered. Timely agronomic information from industry experts available online anytime. Give your wheat crop a good start and a great finish with the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com. Brought to you by C&M Seeds, Syngenta Canada, and the Alberta Wheat and Barley Commission.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire here on RealAg Radio, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, to Davidson, Saskatchewan. We're talking to Mike Beckie. Hey, Mike, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for giving me a shout.
Yeah, okay. So how are those crop conditions looking there in Davidson?
Well, things are going backwards. We were doing good until about, I'm going to say a week and a half ago, and things are starting to go backwards now. There's starting to get a blue tinge to it. Our canola is kind of turning blue, from the lack of moisture other than the low spots. They're green where snow laid, and water was. So, things are kind of going backwards right now.
That sucks. That's too bad. I'm really sorry to hear that. Is there any rain in the forecast for you?
Well, there's a little bit. 5 days out.
Yeah.
Any say it's been a hit and miss. There's a small pocket. We got some land down closer to Davidson. Had some pretty good rain, and it's still hanging on good, but it's over flocks down there. And the lentils are doing okay so far. The wheat and the canola are really taking a hit right now.
So on the lentils, because it is dry, have you seen any evidence yet of Aphanomyces root rot?
I got a couple fields that have some really small patches in it. Nothing, really severe. Just the odd little patch that blown up, and even it's not terrible. Like there's still some plants in there that are still doing fairly well.
How many? Like, what's the rotation right now? Because that area has had some root rot issues. How spaced out are you on your lentils right now?
We're every 5 years.
Yeah, and that seems to be kind of like at one time. Were you every 2, maybe, or every 3 for sure?
No, we tried not to. We were, there might be the odd field just how it figured out as far as might change our mind or change one quarter or a couple, in a season. But for the most part, we were about 4 years before.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue for pulse acres in Saskatchewan. I actually visited a field here this week outside of Plentywood, Montana. And terrible amount of Aphanomyces. So it's definitely a threat to the lentil acre long term. There's no question about it.
Sure. And you're just kidding yourself if you think it's not gonna. It definitely is. Just in the tail end of putting fungicide out on the lentils right now. I don't know if it was the right thing to do or not, but done it even in a dry year. So give them a shot, and that'll be it, I guess. That spraying some grasshoppers.
How have the grasshoppers been?
It's kind of our area, same old deal. Some land closer to ground that's lighter, got some grass on it, not to do borders. Just been doing borders so far. And it kind of depends on, I know west of here, you guys have been battling it constantly. It's the farther west you go from the west side of number 11 highway here, they're really big over there as far as crop and grasshoppers.
You mentioned the dryness. So what percent, and just ballpark, like we don't know until the combine hits the field, but do you think you're like pulled back 25% from optimum yield? Is it like really bad? Like where it's like a 50? You think it's more like 50?
I'm thinking 50. It'll depend on if we get some rain, fills the heads that are there. So it's kind of a crapshoot right now. Wheat's just starting to poke heads out now.
So if Mother Nature would surprise us, it would really be super helpful right now. Like if you're going to help us anytime, help us right now.
Yep. Oh, for sure. If we don't get anything, I'm going to say in the next 10 days, it's going to be ugly.
Sorry to hear that. So I'm going to assume then that you have been very conservative on your 23 crop marketing. Is that fair?
Yep.
Yeah. And
I
go ahead.
I did about 10 bushel a week. Got locked up. I didn't want to do anything more than that. And I did a little bit of IP canola. We grow in bigger hills. A couple loads yet. And other than that, I haven't done anything.
Yeah. Well, and hey, 21 will, I don't forever live in our minds, but it's going to hang with us for a while. And it's lesson learned.
Yep. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And, it's a little disheartening. We had a pretty good start, some really good emergence. Things were ticking along pretty good, and sure just decided to turn the tap off in our area.
That's almost, in some ways, that almost is harder, right? Like, if you were plumb bone dry, first thing, you manage your expectations. When you're off to a decent start, crops out of the ground, boy, it's looking good. There's just need some things to line up here. And when they don't line up, and one of the biggest factors, of course, being rainfall, it sort of gets to you. It's disheartening.
For sure. And of course, when you're going out to the farm, you can drive by that stuff every day and look at it. But that's the game that we play. So it's thank goodness for crop insurance. And
yeah, no doubt. Well, hey, Mike, really appreciate you joining us here. I know you're super busy. You're out there spraying. You had to pull over on the side of the road. So I'll let you get back to it. Hopefully this forecast changes and you get the moisture you need here on a very timely basis. We'll talk to you a little bit closer to harvest, okay?
Yeah, you betcha. Thanks for the call, Shaun.
So as we just heard from Mike Beckie out of Davidson, things going backwards fast, real quick. And this is where timing of rainfall, that timing of the precip, absolutely critical. And if it doesn't happen in very short time, and some of those, the negatives are already starting to show themselves, the visuals. So we know we're off that optimum yield curve, but when Mike tells me 50% drop in projected yield, if we don't, that hurts. That really, really, really hurts. And this is why, I always like to find out how people are making out of their 23 crop marketing, because it tells the story here. This is why we have the hangover from 21. And if you're not using something like options and you're relying on if your strategy is to use production contracts, this is the situation that growers are in right now. And it really, really, I feel for them. It's when you don't have a crop out there, or you're not, and you heard from Simon Ellis, he talked about how they're worried about the big white combine, whereas Mike Beckie there, we just heard from, is more concerned about the fact that there is drought. So these are things that, and maybe it's better risk management from our standpoint as you look at it, but the 21 drought hangover, it still lives in the crop marketer's mind for sure. Okay, we've got 2 more stops on the Farmer Rapid Fire. You're listening to RealAg Radio, here brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. We'll be right back right after this.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com. I'm the host of The Word, and I love doing The Word. I love the questions. I love the challenges. I love having to apply agronomics to all over the globe and areas outside of my normal jurisdiction. Also, I love the feedback the most, where growers challenge me, tell me about their plot results, help me to learn. The Word, absolutely the best part of my day.
Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on this Thursday for the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I am a bit of a road trip this week, covering a lot of different corners. It's a very extended crop tour, if you want to put it that way. Seeing a lot of ground, a lot of acres across Western Canada and parts of Montana here this week. I was able to spend some time with Blake Rasmussen, who farms just outside of Plentywood, Montana, and I roped him in, let's just say, into participating in the Farmer Rapid Fire this week. Let's find out what's going on in northeastern Montana. Blake, how's it going?
Good. Thanks, Shaun. Beautiful day here in Plentywood. Looking at crops and doing kind of the crop tour via pickup, and things look pretty good. Look probably better from the pickup than they do actually walking through the field. We've got durum, lentils, chickpeas, and mustard in this spring.
Yeah, and this is awesome because I've been walking a field here with you. A lot of the same crops that a lot of our listeners in Canada would see, they would see here in Plentywood, just actually south of the Canada-U.S. border. Overall, how does the crop look this year?
Well, in general, a third of the crop looks excellent. A third looks okay, and a third we've got issues with. Yeah. So kind of typical challenges, but every year's unique. We've got probably some of the worst root rot diseases in our lentils that we've ever seen. We've got some chemical carryover in our mustard. Our durum crop is starting to show some stress from lack of rain. And lentils look, the ones that don't have root rot look pretty good. And chickpeas is probably one of our better looking crops at the moment. So,
how are you feeling about 2023? You feeling reasonably optimistic considering some of the obstacles you've been facing agronomically?
Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of hit and miss. Depends which field you're looking at. Weather-wise, if you looked at our weather from a spreadsheet standpoint, you would think we should have a perfect crop. We didn't get in real early, but we had snowfall. We got in May 1st, which is a little bit behind schedule, but we've had great growing conditions since. It is kind of disappointing, to be honest, that the crops, the durum crop's showing stress and a little earlier than we thought. We had a little heat. We had a lot of GDUs coming in, and so typical challenges. We start out with a huge potential, and one thing after another keeps knocking on the door. But if we could catch a rain there's no rain in the 10-day forecast. But if we could get a couple inches, we'd have a crop, real nice crop.
Yeah, there seems to be quite a wide geography that's kind of like on that same message. A week, 2 weeks, we really need some rain. We're kind of living week by week when it comes to moisture right now.
Sure. And, for us, when crops flower, that's the crucial time. So our durum is just starting to head out. It's not quite there. The lentils are flowering full bloom. Mustard's starting to flower. Chickpeas are starting to flower. So these next couple of weeks are pretty critical for us. We're average for subsoil moisture to getting on the low end. But, those crops, it takes a lot of nutrients and water this time of year.
So you mentioned root rot, and we were looking at some of your lentils here. What's the crop insurance look like to help you with this kind of situation? Is there programming in place, or is that something that needs to be fixed in the next farm bill?
The crop insurance on lentils is pretty good, and part of the reason that you see a lot of peas and lentils is because we do have a pretty good crop insurance program. It depends if you're doing optional versus enterprise units, and we have a history. Part of the hindrance for us to diversify our rotation and get more lentils and mustard is the crop insurance isn't nearly as good. We don't have the history. Our county average is pretty low. There's not a big sample size. So I think that's some of the hindrance of us actually diversifying is that in some of those programs we don't see near as good. We can't get the history or it's cost too much for what the coverage level that you're getting. So a lot of guys, that is the backbone and kind of the safety net is the crop insurance. And we've seen, where here a few years ago, crop insurance was a pretty good safety net. And as costs have gone up, we have not seen our safety net has gone down because this is probably the most expensive crop we've ever put in.
Yeah, I'm hearing that across most of the geographies we talk to all the time. This is the highest priced and riskiest crop we've ever put in the ground for sure. You mentioned to me earlier about just the economic driver that lentils have been in these parts.
Yeah, well, we're fairly dry. We don't grow the crops they do in Canada, or even in North Dakota, we're in that 12 to 15 inch rainfall. But lentils are kind of the ones that we can hit a home run with. We've had some tremendous yields. We can raise our averages. Where our lentil or our durum or canola average would be 75% of what it would be in Canada. Our lentil average is better than even the Canadians. So they really are. What's built a lot of infrastructure in this county and done a lot for Main Street, and done a lot for our rotation. But the days of cheap and easy raising lentils are behind us. So we've got some challenges to face, and we're working through them.
We were talking earlier this week on the show about how just last week India agreed to drop the 20% tariff on U.S. lentil exports. This is a county that is a big benefit to. Absolutely. That's huge. And thanks to those that have been working on it, which senators are directly responsible. Thank you. We've got CGI right here in town with a brand new facility that, has been a huge disadvantage over the years, right? As far as processing those and compared to our Canadians right across the border. So we see a lot of product back and forth, and hopefully that opens up and helps everybody in the food chain. We raise a lot of product, and we rely on those exports. Blake, thanks a lot for joining us here for the Farmer Rapid Fire. All the best to you throughout the growing season, and I'm sure we'll have you on again. All right. Thanks, Shaun. Appreciate it. And we finish up the Farmer Rapid Fire with the sponsor of our program, Pioneer Seeds Canada. And we're talking to Pioneer agronomist Chris Olbach, who's in Springfield, Ontario. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Pretty not bad today. How are you, Shaun?
Yeah, all good. Hey, your first time on the show, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, I think so. Yep.
Oh, good.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. Okay, so how are the crops looking at those parts?
Yeah, we've had a good so far start to the season. I think after a pretty dry spring, a pretty dry May. So patience is starting to pay off here. Starting to see that in the soybeans and the corn. It was a tough spring, but we're coming up on fairer weather here, and I think some of the rains and sunlight has been good for the crops. So
yeah, good. So if you look at, and I know wheat harvest is really close here, but if you look at the corn and the beans in your territory, are we still on that optimum yield curve, or are we pulled back a little bit? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. We're all thinking about that right now. I was just, lots of guys looking with the rally that they booked some crop, right? But yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we certainly had a challenging, I would say, May with dry weather, and the part of the area I cover, from St. Thomas to Niagara in southwestern Ontario, there's a lot of sand and a lot of clay, right? So they've had different challenges. I think the dry weather. All in terms of establishment, but if you got a crop established, I think there's still a lot of potential on the table. So yeah, that's what we're seeing in different areas. I mean, the challenges we've had, the rain hides them a little bit, but I think for the most part, it start to drive around, you start to see the canopy start to develop in the crop. So I think that's a good sign. We've done some replanting, addressed some challenges that we've had from the May, but I think that we've been given, but we're coming along pretty good. So
yeah,
I think we still have good potential. Yeah.
Much rainfall in those parts here in the past week?
Yeah, a little more sporadic. We got a few that really saved us through the end of May there, and as we come into June here, it's been a little more sporadic, but ranging from 2 inches in some areas to half an inch through some. So it's been a pretty good sight to see, no matter what you get. But some areas getting more than others. So yeah, that's hard to put my finger on exactly what we're getting everywhere. But it's been helpful.
We definitely have not had those 50-mile wide storms that cover a large geography. It's been more patchwork for honestly kind of across the country.
Yeah, for sure. So, us pointy-headed agronomists like to think we know everything, but when you get rains like that, it really changes things for certain areas.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. What when you're talking to farmers in your territory, what are some of the things that they're talking to you about right now? What are some of the main questions?
Yeah, most recently we've seen quite a bit of the wildfire smoke again come through. This is the second couple of days we've had it, and last night just outside late there, you could even see it in the evening. Just really affecting the horizon. So a lot of people when you wake up to that in the morning too, and you wonder, what's that doing to the crop in Ontario? So I think we're not used to that, but we're getting it this year, and so there's a lot of discussion points about that. I think other areas are more familiar with it than we are in southwestern Ontario, but so we take a look at the development of the crop. We're certainly, I think, a little bit behind in terms of growing degree units and heat, thermal time that we've received here. So, the crop is maybe, not going to reach that, knee high by, 1st of July kind of thing we always talk about. But, we're a little behind, and people are wondering about that smoke and those kinds of things. I guess, rest assured, like we're moving along here. And you can see it in the corn crop, and the rain helps, and the sun we're getting helps. But lots of questions about that wildfire smoke.
Yeah.
So that's been interesting.
And the thing about that, Chris, is that we don't have a lot of research, right? Like a lot of times when we have a problem, we've got some this is what the research says, but this is kind of like a random occurrence. Especially for that area, that we don't have a lot of quantitative research to lean on, right? And that creates a lot of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's people talk about how it'll affect soybeans versus corn. We've got some handle on that, maybe from other areas that see more of it. But certainly something that gets asked, right? And I think it's just part of the course in Ontario. We're always concerned about how quickly our crop is moving along, and are we going to make it with some nice dry crop in the fall to harvest? Lots of questions around that. I think too the soybeans. We've seen stands kind of developing, kind of sporadically with the dry May and on the hard clays and the sand too, like both in a similar position with just seed and dry soil, and that's been talked about quite a bit amongst the growers I covered, right? So, we see with the rain start to bring things along, right? But bringing along at different stages. So I think timing of applications of any management here on out is going to be important when you're talking about white mold in soybeans and, just certain things that we have to do in corn. So that's been on my mind and on my customers' minds a lot too.
Yeah, we definitely can't drop our guard when it comes to the scouting, especially when it applies to those diseases, right? Like we get to that point where it's like, man, I've looked at this crop so much, I'm getting tired of looking at this crop. You got to stick with it. The season's not that long. You don't drop your guard.
Yeah. And it's fun. I mean, that's the best part of my job, I think, as we head into the summer months here. So
I'll
be working with those growers on that. So.
Well, hey, Chris, thanks so much for joining us here today on the Farmer Rapid Fire, and thanks again to Pioneer Seeds Canada for being our sponsor. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it more than you know. Have a great day, Shaun.
As always, a bit of a whirlwind trip across a very wide geography. We had, of course, stops in Canada, but we also got a stop in northeastern Montana here this week, too, which was great to have Blake Rasmussen on the show out of Plentywood. And once again, a big thanks to Pro Co-op Ag Center here in Scobie, Montana, where I had a bit of a, impromptu broadcast from, a bit of an on location. So big thanks to everybody here at Pro Co-op Ag Center in Scobie, Montana. They got 6-7 locations across parts of Montana, and really appreciate them allowing me to use their boardroom here this afternoon. And also a big thanks to Pioneer Seeds Canada for being the sponsor of the Farmer Rapid Fire. Make sure you go to pioneer.com/Canada to find out more. If you have any feedback on the show, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find us across all the different social media platforms. Our username is RealAgriculture on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Or you can call that RealAg feedback line. The number is 855-776-6147. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio, and we will chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.